Hello and welcome everyone to our second session in track 2 today. We will be hearing from Kate Thornhill from the University of Oregon on doing open digital stewardship in the digital humanities, digital scholarship research consultations for graduate students and faculty. Just a reminder for folks, we will be having a Q&A after Kate's presentation. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. The chat is going to be for just general comments. If you have links that you think are relevant to the conversation, basically any questions go in the Q&A, any comments go in the chat. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Kate.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm going to share my screen and just get set up really quick before I start presenting. Okay. Perfect. Is everyone able to see my slides okay? All right, a thumbs up. Sweet. So thanks for joining the session today. I'm going to be presenting on doing open digital scholarship in the digital humanities, digital scholarship research consultation services for graduate students and faculty. I am Kate Thornhill. I am the digital scholarship librarian at the University of Oregon, and I work in digital scholarship services, where I specialize in the digital stewardship of digital projects, more specifically the project design and management of DH projects. I lead consultation services in DSS, as well as project manage and participate on digital scholarship grant projects, as well as teach digital literacy, usually as an embedded librarian. So before diving into what are our consultation services in DSS, I first wanted to frame it within our digital research education and media lab, which is the University Library's Digital Scholarship Center. This is a space on campus in the Knight Library, our main library at UO, that is managed and facilitated by Digital Scholarship Services. It is a donor-funded initiative that's intended to facilitate, support, and offer collaborative opportunities for faculty and graduate students who are working on digital scholarship and public-facing research and education projects. The Dream Lab offers supports from everything from learning more about open digital scholarship methods and techniques to acquiring funding for open access scholarly publishing. Our faculty and students can find support for any of their next research projects, whether it's for digital exhibits, digital archives or collections, building data dashboards, book companion websites, interactive ebooks, new open access journals, or another open digital scholarship research or classroom initiative. And I would say the people that we've been noticing who are primarily using the Dream Lab are the humanists from across all the disciplines at the university. So the road to research consultation services. The Dream Lab formally opened in 2018, 2019. That's when the space was being constructed and being operationalized. And then 2019, 2020, the pandemic started and other things started taking priorities and having to rethink how we have people interacting in our space, engaging in research, as well as thinking about how we needed to frame and shape our consultation services moving forward. Originally, we were going to have planning and release or formal launch of our consultation services in year 2 of the Dream Lab's opening, but because of the pandemic, we had to push that out a year. So we are still in the pandemic, and so how are we operating consultation services? So starting this December is when this past January is when we started formally launching our consultation services and actively advertising them on campus, showing what the Dream Lab is and what it can do beyond being a facility in the libraries. Our consultations are primarily virtual, and they are framed within the theory and practice of digital stewardship and open research. So I have provided some definitions here because I find openness, digital stewardship, digital curation, digital preservation, like these words can be used in very fluid ways and in very flexible ways. And so I wanted to ground this conversation in these definitions of what I mean and what we mean in digital scholarship services about what does open mean, what does digital stewardship mean, what does digital curation mean, and what does digital preservation mean. So for us, when we talk about openness, we're talking about the transparency, reproducibility, and the sharing of research. Along with that, and I did not include this outright as a term in this definition of openness, but we take ethics, ethical considerations, and those imperatives that come along with the considerations very seriously when we are engaging with faculty and students on campus around their research practice. And then how that ties into digital stewardship, because we are the experts on campus in curation and preservation and how to steward the care of materials. We really pride ourselves on that. And so that care of data through its entire life cycle to be able to have long-term preservation and use. And making up what is digital stewardship, we have the practice of curation and preservation. So when we talk about curation, we are talking about the selection, the management, the activities that go involved in preservation, as well as the added value that data has throughout its entire life cycle. And then when preservation comes in, it's that management and protection of digital information to ensure its authenticity, its integrity, its reliability, and its long-term access. So consultation services overview. I'm going to just minimize my screen for a second, get out of my presentation and go directly to the Dream Labs website. And I'm going to put in the chat so y'all have the link to DSS's consultation page so you can check it out too. So as I had previously mentioned, we formally launched our consultation services in December, but I will say like we had always been operating this way. And so how it is now documented and how we advertise this service, our approach is now on our website, where before it was more ad hoc, word of mouth. It still is. But on our Dream Lab website, we have our consultation services page. And I wanted to highlight that we have 4 different types of consultation services. We have our digital tool consultations, we have digital methods consultations, and then we have our partnership and collaboration consultations that have been grouped into research projects and then teaching innovation partnerships. And so I want to give a shout out to the University of Michigan libraries for really helping digital scholarship services be able to frame how we could scalably and realistically be able to provide consultation services to the entire UO. So I wanted to just give them props for that before diving a little bit more into these 4 consultation types. So our first type is our digital tools consultations. I like to say that this is like a level 1 consultation for faculty and grad students. We actually have undergraduate student employees and sometimes graduate student employees that work for DSS that are the primary support for this level. We typically get a lot of questions from students and faculty who want to know how to work with a tool like Omeka or Esri Story Maps or Timeline.js or WordPress. And our students that we have working for us are trained up in a number of these technologies. Either they're trained up on the job or they have already used them as digital projects in their own research or in their classrooms. So we have students mainly supporting this level of consultations, and a lot of the times it's it's helping folks work through tutorials or pointing them to technical documentation that's provided either by open source communities or vendors that operate proprietary softwares. That next level, that next tier of consultation services, we have our digital methodologies. And that is where our, and I'll say it's not just me that provide this support at the professional librarian level or the specialist level. Our digital methods consultations, there's a lot of referrals that happen where my students and I will work together and kind of make a determination of like, who does this need to go to? Does this need to go to data services? Does this need to go to our OER coordinator? Does this need to go, is this a research question for a liaison librarian? Does this need to go to our unit that does digitization? But I would say like these consultations, a lot of them have to do with how do I work with metadata? How do I like deal with my conversion of my digital files? A lot of questions around copyright licensing and fair use for digital projects. How do I think about publishing my data or publishing my articles online? And then next we have our research innovation partnership collaborations. This tier of our consultations is kind of like we have faculty who want to work on digital projects with DSS. So they want us to be equal partners on either grant funded initiatives or projects that they're ideating to have be a proof of concept. So what we do require is that anyone who does want to work with DSS or write us into a grant where we would build the DH project with you, they actually have to go through a digital methods consultation first so we can understand what they're really going to be asking for. And so on our site, we have listed our specific criterias around like, what do we say yes to when we are considering these partnerships, and this gives us a framing for how to negotiate with faculty partners who want to build DH projects with us. And then finally, we have our teaching innovation partnership consultation services, consultations. And these are for digital projects that mainly happen in the classroom. And similar to the research collaborations, they pretty much follow a similar criteria. And I'm not going to dive deep into the levels of what both partnerships and collaborations look like. But I would say like they are a little bit more intense because we're having to think about classroom management. We're having to think about the technical competency levels of students in the classrooms, and also what could the library provide at a scalable way to faculty. So that's a quick overview of what our consultation services entail. And I'll say that we do have everybody go through an intake form, or there are folks on campus that are like, hey, go talk to Kate or go talk to Franny Gady, and they'll lead you in the right direction for how the UL libraries could be supporting you with your efforts. So let me get back to my slides. So what are some examples of doing open stewardship with the faculty and the graduate students? So I'll say like our most popular topics involved copyright fair use and licensing and the ethical reuse of research materials, either that you have generated yourself or that you have found on the open web. Another is data privacy and security. We have a lot of questions related to open source and proprietary web platforms, digital file management and metadata creation, and also interoperability and how to create documentation for your research projects, as well as like full on out the gate, like come and have a consultation for how to design your projects. So one example that I want to focus on for this slide is there's an initiative that's happening on campus right now called the Just Futures Institute. And it's a 3-year Andrew W. Mellon funded initiative on campus to establish Racial and Climate Justice Institute in the Pacific Northwest. And so it's a partnership, not just with UO, but a number of other universities in the Pacific Northwest. And there's one project, so how these projects are framed, everyone is producing digital DH projects. And they are, many of them are centered around participatory action research methodology. So there's a lot of community partnerships and that are directly involved in helping to make digital projects. And there's one that is happening out of the our historic preservation program that's based in Portland, and it's called the Albina African American History Story Map. And so an example consultation related to that digital project was the graduate student and the lead faculty member on that project met with me to have a methodologies conversation about how to be able to structure their the metadata that would be used for narrative map storytelling using Esri story maps and also using ArcGIS online. And I introduced a lot of concepts around how to build a data dictionary and the importance of, you guys are reusing a data set that comes from a government agency, but there is no data dictionary or metadata application profile that has been provided to you. So how do you know what certain field names are, certain value, how values operate, and how they function, and overall how readable they are to you to be able to reuse and interpret the data in new ways. Another aspect of that project was thinking through so you're going to be doing oral histories. Have you considered where you're going to be storing your stuff? Have you considered the long-term access of where you're going to be archiving those interviews? And have you talked about how you're going to be coordinating all of your lab essentially around this data management? And so that's been really, really exciting to engage in research support in that way. But I do want to talk about impact really quick. So how have our consultation services already had an impact? Like I mentioned, we formally launched in January, but we've been doing this for a while over the past 4 to 5 years, but now it is completely formalized. So some impact is we've been able to introduce traditional knowledge labels to our research office. We've been able to also introduce to them how DH projects work and how they're designed and how they're managed. Definitely from a copyright and intellectual property right perspective of thinking through archival. We're not just working with research data that's original research. Primarily, we're working with stuff that comes from archives and special collections as well. We've also been helping offices on campus and faculty on campus thinking about open licensing and what does that mean in the context of their digital projects. One of my favorite outcomes is our graduate students specifically, they have ideas of where they want to build their digital projects, but maybe they don't have an introduction or have been introduced to where you build and why in the long-term sustainability of those technology projects that you're putting on the internet. So an example of this is graduate students leave the university. So if you build on university infrastructure, our hosted WordPress that's managed by Central IT, you will lose access to your research project a year or two after graduation. And so helping them think through the technical sustainability of their research projects that they want to build on later, and how to help them think about their project design as a long-term plan that includes data migrations and having to actively steward their projects, not just the data itself, and understanding the relationship between those two things, the platform and the data. Another thing I'm really happy about with our consultation services is we're able to provide students with jobs on campus. Our undergraduate students, we specifically will hire students that have technical proficiencies and also create opportunities for them to be able to enhance their technical skills and also learn how to teach people through workshops and also one-on-one tutorial sessions. Other impact areas that we have had with our consultation services is just that building relationships with other departments on campus. So for example, our records management office really wants to start thinking about the 2023 Preservation Week and how to like be able to advertise that on campus and bring the library in as like the experts in preservation and curation and stewardship to UO. So it's been great. It's been really great for just like our reputation building and what librarians are able to bring to the university. And then I'm going to pause there because I am at my 11:30 and I'm going to stop my share. So thank you. And now I will take questions. There's a lot I haven't covered,
Yes.
so I'm hoping people will ask.
Yeah. Thank you, Katie. And we do have a question in the chat from Amy regarding the knowledge labels. Do you know if they're used in Oregon on one of your projects or otherwise? I'm looking for examples that I can share.
Yeah, so I'm actually on a DH project right now, and we are going to be using TK labels. And so it's called the Healers Project. And I'm gonna share the URL in the chat. We haven't applied the TK labels yet, but healers.uoregon.edu. We're in the process right now of working with the faculty members to use TK labels in their research because the collections that we're building with the Healers projects, there's ethnobotanical photographs as well as interviews with healers. And we are planning right now for figuring out how to acquire and accession those at the university, but this is going to be a project directly out of UO. That's a DH research project that will be using TK labels. Yeah, I would love to chat with you, Amy.
We currently have no other questions in the Q&A, but I'm sure folks will have some. I did have a question of my own. So you had mentioned an intake form as part of the process of soliciting consultation or collaboration with the Dream Lab. I was wondering if you could go into that a little more and talk about what type of questions you ask on the intake form and what has your experience been with using that?
Yeah, so I'll say it's working. People are using it, which is making me really excited. So the questions that are asked depends on kind of like the choose your own adventure that someone takes in our intake form. So if someone has a question about how do I use Omeka, we have in our intake form like that choose your own adventure journey where we're like, what are you actually looking for? And so if we have an option where it's are you looking for just like assistance with using technology, or are you looking for like someone to help you like think through problem solving related to, you know, I always use copyright as the example because that's like one of the easiest ones. Or like, are you looking for like help with like learning how to describe the materials that you're working with or that you're producing? And so we have that choose your own adventure. I'll say like with the methods the methods tier, I do ask folks to provide examples that they found on the web, so that way I can understand like what are they really asking for, because I do treat it like a very like I'm doing a reference interview, I'm doing a research interview out the gate and acting like that detective to figure out what they're really asking for. And in fact, this term I'm going to be training up our tier 1 support for digital tools, training up our students around that triaging of, you know, what is someone really asking for? Because one of the ways people do connect with us the most is like, hey, I heard that like you guys know how to set up Esri story maps at the university. And so getting my students trained up on like, here's the things to identify where, you know, triage to Kate, triage to Franny, or we'll be able to put someone else in, we'll be able to put that person in contact with another professional in the library.
Thank you. I did have another question, but I want to give space for anyone else who might have a question that they haven't asked yet. But if not, I was wondering if you, so it's really great that U of O has the Dream Lab and has this kind of large center of institutional support. And I was wondering if you had any tips or advice for doing these open digital scholarship consultations for folks who are working at colleges or universities who might not have that same infrastructure backing them.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So I'll also frame this with, I started out in libraries, working in a small art branch library at a liberal college, at a liberal arts college in Massachusetts. And I was charged with, Kate, figure it out. Run digitization, run digital projects, run consultation services. And this is back in like 2012, 2013. And so I can speak directly to like, how would you scale this up when you're not at a research university? And, you know, I think it's recognize what you actually have control over, and what relationships you are able to leverage in the libraries as well as outside of the libraries. So when I was working at a small college in Massachusetts, I made sure to build relationships with the person that came and fixed my laptop when it wasn't working, because I knew that I had faculty that were like, hey, I have all this stuff that I want to store on hard drives. And I was like, that might not be the best solution, but like, I'm going to put you in contact with like central IT, because they need to know that like cloud storage like is a thing that like faculty on campus want to use, even though they're not doing hardcore research. And so that's kind of how I was approaching it, of just like how to find those pockets and like the nuggets on campus to find like support for the faculty and students. I mean, for me, it's always thinking about what is your capacity management. And so with the digital tools, it's instead of, you know, like, I need to customize all these like how-to documents to like the UO. And I'm like, no, like, I'm just gonna like, we're going to just take like the Omeka documentation and point people to that, because you can learn to do the click-alongs. Like there's tutorials on the internet. And so building those resources to point people to where they could feel empowered to learn these tools on their own. But also know that like there are people in the library that are aware and know how to do these things. I also have used that in the past too, in terms of like building relationships, like documenting these asks of you and bringing that to your administration to advocate for more resources to be able to support you. So thinking about that, like, I mean, that's one reason why like this intake form is really important, because it's going to be quantitative data that I could use to justify to get more support from my library as well as the university. But I mean, with building digital projects, it gets more complicated, where if you're saying yes to participating, it's having to also negotiate that relationship with that faculty member you're partnering with. If you don't have the capacity to say yes to just going full on and like building a project for them, help them understand why you can't. So I do that a lot. And in fact, like my department sometimes just gets written into grants and we don't know about it. And then we're like, well, let's manage expectations. And so I think it's being really clear about what you can and can't do, but never really saying no, always trying to find a way to help them solve the problem. Did that answer your question okay, Diana?
That does. Thank you. And we are just about out of time. So thank you again, Kate, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I definitely learned a lot about how to set up these consultations and the goals for them. For just a reminder for folks, we will be having a 10-minute break. The next session in this track is going to be open access to expertise with Humanities Washington Speakers Bureau. And the next session in the other track is lending a hand, the library's role in supporting open pedagogy. Once again, thank you so much, Kate, for your presentation.
Thank you.